Hey everyone, I'm out here in the garage and what we're going to be doing today is starting to disassemble the engine on the 2008 Acura MDX. So stay tuned. So if you're new to the channel, I just want to welcome you here and hopefully you'll consider subscribing if you like what you see. Also, check out Car Apprentice on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. I post lots of pictures and videos on those platforms before I post anything on YouTube. And occasionally I'll post things on those platforms I don't post on YouTube. Also, check out the website at carapprentice.com. And don't forget to hit the like button if you like this video. So what we're going to be doing today is starting to disassemble the 2008 Acura MDX's engine. So in previous videos, we did a compression test and found that cylinder number 4 was low on compression at 75 psi. We also did a leak down test and we followed that up with a smoke test because the leak down test was inconclusive. Then we went inside the cylinders with the bore scope and took a look around and we found that cylinders number 4 and 5 have bad exhaust valves. So now we're at the point where we're going to open up the engine and see if our findings are true. So let's get into it. Okay, so I'm going to take this mostly from the top except for relieving the fuel pressure. Check out the video I did on compression testing the engine for more information on relieving the fuel pressure. I need to drain the radiator, so the service manual says to start the car, then turn the climate control temp to high. Since I've already relieved the fuel pressure and removed the second main relay, I'm just going to put the key in the ignition and turn it to the on position, then turn the climate control temp to high. While I'm up top, I'll disconnect the negative battery cable with the 10mm. Alright, so with the engine cold, I'll remove the cover, then remove the radiator cap. Appears to be blue. Next, we'll go under the car and remove the splash shield. I don't own a clip removal tool, so I'll use a couple screwdrivers. There we go. That's a stubborn one. It's got a lot of dirt on it. While I was on the driver's side, I decided to remove this rear cover, which is held in by some clips and 3 10mm bolts. Alright, so I was able to use one side to get it out, but that's not ideal. You want to have pressure on both sides so it doesn't snap. And just like the other side, this one has a bunch of dirt, it feels like, in here too. There we go. Wow, that was tough. I'm going to leave this one for a second, get the other ones out, then I'll come back to this one. In part because I want to have something to stabilize this while I'm taking all the rest out. I don't want this whole thing to come down in my face. So that's my excuse anyway. It's a little easier. Okay, so the only 2 clips that are left in are these 2 here, this one and that one. So I'm going to pull this down. Hopefully this will come out without any problem here. Pull that out of there. Pull the other side out. It should come out. There we go. Ooh. That's one way to get it out. Just break it. Yeah, that one's wedged in there for some reason. I expect to break plenty of these 15-year-old clips, so we'll just get new ones. That is stuck in there. There we go. To contain any potential spills, I'll place a metal pan on the floor under the plastic drain pan. I'm going to try a crescent wrench. There we go. Make sure this is centered and let her rip. Lift this up a little bit. Alright, so while I've got the radiator draining, I'm going to attempt to drain the block. I say attempt because I have to reach really high up in there to get to it. There we go. Not terribly tight. It should be good enough right there. Probably a turn and a half, something like that. Alright, so I opened it up a little more and now I've got it draining. I'm trying to be careful to not open it up too much to where the actual center part starts to fall out. I'm not sure if it will or not, but that looks good now. Alright, so it looks like the block is drained. I'm going to go ahead and close that plug back up. I'm going to pull this hose off. And I'll pull the wrench off. Alright, so I think we are done here. I'm going to close this up by hand this time. I think somebody probably closed it with a wrench or something, or it just hasn't been open in a while. Okay, that's closed. And we'll just reinstall the radiator cap. Next, we'll remove the serpentine belt from the passenger side of the engine. So I purchased this serpentine belt tool. These sometimes come in a set with regular and crow's foot sockets, but I didn't need a full set. I'm using a 14mm crow's foot on this job. I'll get the crow's foot in place on this pulley's bolt, then push. Then I'll remove the tool so I can remove the belt. Alright, so I'm going to remove the engine cover. So I have a large screwdriver. Alright, so I'm going to remove the power steering pump from the side of the engine. So there's a bolt back here. I'm not sure if that's the original bolt. It's kind of loose, but it looks like a 10mm. Alright, so you're probably not going to be able to see much of what I'm doing here. What I'm going to do is take the power steering pump off. So there's a 12mm right there. And I'm going to use a swivel socket on that because it's really hard to get a regular socket in there. 12mm swivel. Let's see if this will fit. There we go. Wow, that took a little effort. Okay, there it is. All right, so there's a second bolt underneath the pulley right here, and it's really hard to get to, so I'm going to use a serpentine belt tool. I've got a 12mm deep socket on that, and I'm going to see if I can get this loose. There we go. So that's what my setup looks like. I think it is out now. Hopefully it'll just fall straight down. Jeez. There it goes, all the way to the ground. So we've got these two bolts, they are the same size. Okay, so we're going to remove the AC suction line bracket bolts. So there's two of them, one here and one down here. Okay, we need to get the power steering reservoir out of the bracket and also unclip the coolant reservoir. We're going to pull that out of here actually. 2 screwdrivers. Again, I got to buy the clip removal tool, I know. So, pull that out. I think I'm going to take this out while I'm here too. Just lift up. There's a hose right here that this goes past. I'll lift this up here. Just gonna take it out for a second. I'll worry about getting the hose off in a second. And be careful about the coolant, not getting that on the car. Okay, that's out. That's an interesting shape. There we go. Okay, so we need to get the alternator out next. That is going to be extremely difficult to see because it's tucked right underneath here. So I'm just going to throw up a couple pictures and proceed. Okay, so to get to this plug right here, this connector, this bracket's in the way, so I'm going to take this off. I took the coil pack that was here out. It was a 10mm for this nut. Just pull it out, disconnect it and pull it out, and then these two bolts, I'm going to take these off and take this little bracket out. Okay, so I took this bolt and bracket off. This is a 12mm. So we've got a 12mm. We've got this one is a 14, that's the lower bolt, and then this one is also a 12mm. So all those come out, and I'm going to pull the alternator out now. What a crazy alternator. Okay, I'm going to take this bracket off too. There's a bracket right here for the power steering reservoir. 10mm. Okay. Oh, come on out. There we go. There's the alternator. Pain in the butt. So this is the lower ear right there. This is the upper ear where the, so this bolt goes through here. This bolt goes through here. And then this bracket is on the front. Alright, so next we're going to remove the timing belt. Now we need to turn the crankshaft and line up a couple marks. So I'm going to turn the crankshaft and then we'll look at the marks that are lined up once I get that done. You may want to also remove the spark plugs to make it easier to turn the crankshaft, but I'm going to try it without doing that right now. Alright, so hopefully you can see that. You can see the one right there and the mark below that. So that mark needs to line up with the camshaft cover. Alright, so there is the mark for the camshaft cover. That's the front camshaft cover. And you can see right there, that's that line for the number 1 piston to be at top dead center. So those are lined up. Here's the engine cylinder firing order. It's 142536. As the crankshaft is turned, the numbering that's viewable through the camshaft cover's port will appear in that order. So we're at top dead center on the number 1 piston. You can see the white mark on the crankshaft pulley is lined up with the arrow on the cover. Then we also lined up the camshaft pulley mark with the camshaft cover. So we are at top dead center on the number 1 piston, and we can proceed. Alright, so we're going to remove the auto tensioner. So I'm going to start with the 12 millimeter. Okay, and I'll just take that out by hand. Alright. Alright, so I'm working on the pulley bolt. That's a 14. Try the ratcheting wrench. This one has the fat head on it. So it's got 2 sizes on each end. There we go. Bring that down this way and out. Next, we're going to remove the engine mount on the passenger side. So I'm supporting the engine with my floor jack and a block of wood under the oil pan. 10 millimeter. I may block review using an impact because the bracket's trying to twist when I loosen it with a regular ratchet. Those on pretty tight. There that is. So this ground wire here is what I was after. Alright, so there are 3 engine mount bolts to loosen and remove. I'm going to start with the big one over here first. Get that loosened at least, and then we'll tackle the other 2. So the big one is 17 millimeters, the other 2 are 14. Okay, got that loosened at least. 14s. Dang. Okay, so we're going to get the cover off in the front first. I'm going to take this clip off here. So I've got some pliers. That's off. So these covers is going to be very hard for you to see anything. So I'm just going to take them off. I'll show you where all the bolts go. There's 5 bolts on this one and 5 on that one, and I believe they're all 10 millimeters if that's consistent with other Honda cars. Alright, so we're going to pull the covers off now. I got all these bolts out. So to get the bolts out, I had to go on top on a few of them, go underneath the car and reach up on a few of them. I used different size sockets. I used my air tools. It was kind of fun. I guess we'll call it that. So I'm going to pull this off. So that's the front cover right there. Okay, we're going to take the rear top cover off now. This one does have a wire harness that goes through the bracket on it, so you have to get the wire harness out of the way there, and then oh, here it goes. Wow, there's that one. Alright, so we need to get the crank pulley off now, which means loosening the bolt. And on the way these engines are mounted on these MDXs, and also on the Pilot, I had the same issue. I think most people have the same problem, is that getting this off is really not very easy to position tools in there, like the crank pulley tool. So I am not going to use the crank pulley tool, and I did the starter bump trick on the Honda Pilot. That worked. But I really don't want to set up for that on this car because it's just a pain in the butt to do that. So I'm going to use the harmonic balancer socket by Lyle, the 77080. A lot of people have used this tool. It's all over the internet. I figured I'd give it a shot. Now I don't have a high torque impact wrench, so we will see how that goes. I think mine's about 500 foot-pounds max. So there's the socket right there. Alright, so I've got the air compressor line turned up to 110 psi. I'm hoping that'll give me a little bit more oomph to get this off. First of all, I want to check to see how well it fits too. I don't want this to round off, so let's do that first. A little bit of wiggle in there. Alright, so I turned the air pressure up to 120. I think that's about as high as I'm going to go. I'm going to give this another shot. Alright, so I finally got it off with this old impact that I have, which goes up to about 500 foot-pounds of torque max. And so what seemed to work was hitting it real quick, then stopping, and then hitting it again. I think that probably adds a little bit of shock to the bolt, is what I'm guessing. So we got it off, and we'll proceed. Alright, so there you have it. There's the first part of disassembling the engine on the 2008 Acura MDX. So we ran into a few hurdles that we had to overcome. And then the last hurdle was removing the crank pulley bolt. Now I did try using the Honda crank pulley tool. That did not work very well. So I'm glad I ended up buying that socket to get it off. So hopefully this information was helpful. And thanks for watching.